Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday, it's December 3rd, and this will be our chart lesson for the day. Almost started off almost as a the exact type day we had yesterday. Your big move down, then you kind of went sideways. Only difference today was we took this next leg down and we went sideways, and we finally had a little bit of a rally, which was not unexpected at all. If you read the mid-morning chart lesson, I talked about that. When a couple of days down that hard, you can get some big spikes and rallies in these kind of things. It doesn't mean that the down move is over. We could start down again tomorrow and do the same thing, but we were just a little overdone to the downside. Almost 100 points in 2 days is just a little much. So let me back out so you can see the big picture. But you can see the big move down, the break. Then we went into the more slanted two-tier channel, then a break. We never could make a new low, and we bounced out of there. The market was just a little overdone. So there was a huge gap on the daily chart now that's left up here that we'll probably try to fill at some point. We did fill the gap that was left from a few days ago on the down move yesterday, which I thought that was probably our target, and then maybe we'd go higher from there, but it didn't. We took another leg down. So, and we may not be done to the downside yet, so just be prepared. But I'm going to back out. We'll go through the trades. The bias is down today, so even when you're going sideways here, after this big move down, the bias is really down until we get outside here and start trending up. And finally, we got a channel that worked up here. We had a little overshoot, then a break, and a move to a new high, and then we just kind of worked sideways after that. So, but let me come all the way back over here to 7 o'clock, make this a little bigger, and we'll go through the trades, and then we'll wrap it up. This came right at 7 o'clock, came right in here. Notice you got that new high and you're working down. You got a first entry, then a second entry, and you really got a little hidden second entry there. There's a move up, down, up, and so that's a second entry short there on a smaller level. But the main thing, it's a failed second entry long. It's real close to being green because you're going short right into the lows of the day. But when this thing's been down that hard, sometimes that's worth risking. We're not back to the EMA. We're not back to the trend line. So there's some reasons to be concerned about that one as well. So it's right there on the borderline. I marked it just because it was so bearish and such a good signal bar. I marked it red, but you could argue for that to be green. We dropped on down, and I would have measured that first leg up here from here to here. I'm going to call that our first leg down on today's action. And so your targets, minimum target's right in here, but we went a good bit lower than that. So you would have been looking for that target at a minimum. And then we finally come back to the EMA here, but that's mostly just sideways, and there's at least one doji in there, so that's congestion. You didn't get a setup on my chart. There is a second entry short there, but there's your signal bar. You got a doji, and then a little bit of an inside bullish bar, and then this outside bar, and it's just not a good setup on my chart, unfortunately. But if you had a good signal bar here, by all means, I'd probably take that short. But if you waited just a few more minutes, then you got a nice second entry short right here, and you got a nice small bar. Notice that low, first entry, second entry. It's mostly bearish. There's a lower high here, but again, I don't have a very good signal bar. And there's another failed second entry long here that you might have considered, but when this ended up as an inside bar and then another almost, that's really a kind of a bearish bar, but you're just stacking up there and you're a little bit away from the EMA, I'd probably skip that. It would have worked if you would have taken it. If maybe you had a good signal bar right in here, maybe, but I think you're just better off to wait. And if you did, because we're overdue for a bounce, and then finally you get that bounce and you get a nice second entry short right here. There's basically a little double top across there. Second entry short, relatively bearish bar. That's the better place. You get another lower high here after pushing through, but again, no setup on my chart. Maybe you had a bearish bar here. If you did, I probably wouldn't be afraid to take that. But it just comes back again and gives you another second entry. Notice that low, first entry, second entry, and nice bearish bar, and that confirms that trend line and that little channel there. Again, you got a lower high, but again, I don't get a very good setup on my chart. If you did right here, by all means take it, because that's really your high. It's just an inside bar, then another kind of inside bar there. Not a very good setup. And then now you're too far away down here. And we do bounce. It's too early to be buying. You're working up. All of these, you know, you got this channel or this trend line working up until you get a break of that and some kind of nice setup. You got to wait. And you finally get a failed second entry long here. Notice you got that new high, first entry, second entry, and it did push through the EMA and pull back. That's a relatively bearish bar. I like that one. And we start back down again. Of course, we bounce here where we bounced a few times before. You can see that bounce. It's tempting to go long being that far away from the EMA, but you're better off to wait on a higher low, and you get that right here, but you've already been into the EMA. You do have a break and a new low, so that's a possibility. You could mark that one green. I'd wait. You got to be careful getting long this early. Of course, it turns out to be a great move. And there's a nice setup here, but again, we don't have any close outside that trend line. And we went a little bit higher than the last couple of bars, so this could continue higher. It doesn't, though. You get a lower high right here. Again, I didn't mark that one, and the reason is because there's 3 matching lows right there. You're getting awfully close to the EMA, and you see how it bounced a couple of times there. It did push on through, but there's no guarantee that's going to happen. So do have a trend line working through there, and you really never get a close outside. That's not a convincing close outside. So there is a second entry up here, but again, there's your signal bar, way too bullish. It is a second entry. If you had a nice bar right there with a double test, by all means take that one. But you got this working up, and you get a break and 2 legs up to a new high. Now you made that high, you test it once, you test it twice, and that's kind of a failed breakout. Notice how we went a little higher. It's not a perfect signal bar, but it's mostly bearish. That's a good setup right there. We should be going, you would hope we're going to the other side. And it looks like we're going straight down there, but we kind of get hung up here. I marked this one. We're just kind of going sideways here. This is just congestion. You could have gotten fooled right here because there is a second entry, and you got 1 leg down, and you still got some room. So if you did and you got hung up in this, just take what you can get before you get stopped out right here. When it starts going sideways, just mark this as a small congestion range, and if you get hung up in there, and just take what it'll give you. I mean, you could have got out a couple of times with a tick here, easily at break even. Don't let that come back and take a full stop on you right there. This should have taken on off if it was going lower, and the fact that it just started going sideways was not a good sign. So there's really 2 legs up here, and there's 2 swings in each leg, and so that's kind of what was going on there. And notice you get a little failed breakout right here. It's a huge bar. I marked it, and it is a second entry. Notice that low's lower than that one, so first entry, second entry. But I'd kind of forget about second entries right here and failures and all that, and just treat this like a range. And that's your failed breakout, so you get a chance to get short at the very high of it, and maybe it'll keep going. Nice move, and then it bounced. Notice you got a low there, and you push through here and pull back. That's a little bit of a reversal pattern. It closes outside the range area right there, and you might have even moved that up to here by then. If you did, that makes you wonder about that one a little more, but really most of your touches or your closes were along right there, and you can see this playing both sides. And if you look at it like that, it closes outside. And I marked it green. It's a little bit aggressive, but to try to go that low that many times and not be able to do it and turn up, we're probably going to try to run back up to the highs again. And that's what happens here. And you get another, you turn down again. And so now we're just kind of in the middle of the range here, and we're not getting to the highs, we're not getting to the lows. So you got to be real careful in here. Notice you made some highs here. You made that high, you test it once, you test it twice. And so now you got a double test. This is a really big bar. Really what you'd want to do is when it broke lower here, I'd probably drop a limit order back in here and see if it'd back up and fill. You just want to make sure you got enough room to get out before these lows here. And that's exactly where it bounces, where that last low was right there. And you can see that kind of working both sides of that line. And then you get a double test off the lows here. You actually got a confirmation of the trend line and a bounce on basically a second entry here. But my signal bar is not good enough, in my opinion, for me to take that. If you had a nice bullish signal bar here off that bounce, you may take that trade on that second entry long. But when you got this double test here and a nice bullish bar and it bounces off of it again, that's the place to go long. Look at it go. I didn't mark anything really after that. Actually, I did mark this one. But you're still inside this range. You got to be careful getting short here, because we're working our way up in this trend, but you can't go long into that resistance. So you really need to break on through, and you could look at that as a failed second entry short, but those 3 bar matching highs really scare me right there. And notice how it didn't take long to pull back. It did bounce again, but you don't get a signal bar there. And then by the time you get here, it's just you're too far away from the EMA. It overshoots, it comes back here. Again, there's no setup here on my chart. There's no way to really know what's going on here. You should be coming to this side, but you just don't get a short here on my chart. And it just drops on down. Notice all your bars are just too, this is really your signal bar, and it's just too bullish. Then you get an inside bar that's bullish. And then you get a big outside bar, and by that time it just looks like congestion. So, but you do come down here and you get notice you're making all those lows, and you get that little drop lower, and it turns and goes out the other side. I like going long there. If you enter here, you want to go long 1 tick above this bar, because you got to have room before you get back to that EMA. Although we're probably going to try to make a new high here. If this channel, as much as we played that channel, I would expect prices to try to make a new high. We may not, because everything's been so bullish today. But that's the expectation. That's not a great setup. There's a lot of congestion right there, but you're probably going to pull back to the EMA. So you may take that one based on the fact that it broke lower and then went out the upper side. So, and that took us in the 2 o'clock hour, and I didn't mark anything else. So it got a little iffy and dicey here in the afternoon. But there were so many trades early on, shorts here, that you should have found plenty. And you would have had some runners on a few of these too. So, especially this very first trade here. But anyway, I feel like I kind of rushed through that, and maybe I did, but I'm so busy trying to catch up, and I've got some personal issues I'm trying to catch up on from being gone from the holidays as well. So I got a lot going on. I apologize, but we'll kind of get back into it here towards the latter part of the week. And I'm also, just to kind of give you a heads up, I'm probably going to take off the latter part of the year. I'll probably work a few days in this, maybe the 16th, 17th, maybe even the 18th, and I'll probably take off those last, probably those last 2 weeks or so, from the 18th on, probably come back to work on the 2nd. So anyway, we'll talk about it as we get to it. So not much time left in this year. Not much, can't believe we're already into December. Thanksgiving's already come and gone. So time is passing on. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up today because I need to get out of here. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.